Today we're going to be looking at a planning and teaching technique called backward mapping. This technique has been supported as a beneficial way of planning for quality teaching experiences in the arts. We will look at what backward mapping is and how it can create more meaningful and successful learning experiences for students in the arts through an example that relates to a unit of work on watercolour in a Stage 2 classroom. Backward mapping is a form of social constructivism and is centered around the concept of outcome-based learning. This means that the focus of what happens in the classroom is based on what students must be able to successfully do at the end of their learning experiences. Through backward mapping, teachers plan with the end product in mind, starting by identifying the learning goals and outcomes that indicate what the students are expected to learn to do, and then they work backwards to form assessment tasks, create learning experiences, and decide on teaching methods that will ultimately allow children to develop the skills and understanding to be successful in what they are learning to do. This technique of unit and lesson planning only works if the end goals are worthwhile. Readman and Allen in their writings also support this technique that places the goal over the process. Killen suggests that teachers should ask questions when planning that will allow them to follow the backward mapping procedure, including: what do we want students to learn? Why do we want students to learn these things? How can we best help students to learn these things? And how will we know when students have learned? You might have already started thinking about the benefits of backward mapping just from its explanation. Firstly, it allows teachers to have freedom in selecting the content and methods that they will employ and teach in the classroom to help the students in their class achieve the outcomes. Readman and Allen also add that teachers have felt confident through using this process and that they have covered everything they need to get their students where they need to be in terms of learning. Teachers have felt that their students had enough practice in the skills needed to meet the goals and enough knowledge transmitted through this process. Other benefits are that teachers have a more clear focus in mind when planning, and students are more engaged as all the activities they engage in have a known purpose. Through backward mapping, assessments are also more effectively planned, and teachers can more easily gather appropriate data from assessment. Overall, the relationship between teaching, learning, and assessment is strengthened through the process of backward mapping. Let's have a look at what backward mapping may look like in the creative arts. We will use the Stage 1 sections of the New South Wales syllabus to look at how a unit of work may be planned for visual arts in a Year 2 classroom. This particular unit is based on representing nature using watercolour art and focuses on the use of colour to show things such as beauty and mood. Firstly, it is important for teachers to establish some learning goals for the unit of work. The teacher must think about what the whole point of the unit of work is. Goals for this unit could be that children will be able to see and represent the beauty in nature. Children will be confident in using watercolour paints to represent something in nature. Children will understand how colour can be used by themselves and artists to show beauty and set the mood of the artwork. And children will understand how to use watercolour techniques to show colour in nature. These goals would guide the whole unit of work. The teacher, using the backward mapping procedure, then would identify the learning outcomes and objectives for this unit based on the goals. These outcomes outline what students are expected to learn and be able to do. The outcomes are stated to show clear and significant learning. The outcomes chosen from the Stage 1 section of the Visual Arts New South Wales syllabus are on the screen. These are suitable outcomes as the children are painting with watercolour to show experiences of real or imaginary things, and also they are learning about the use of colour in art to represent things. The teacher can then work backwards to establish the necessary assessment for this unit of work. The assessments are designed in order for teachers to observe and gather information of the child's knowledge and abilities in relation to the outcomes and the goals. It is essential that assessment provides clear evidence of the outcomes. The New South Wales Board of Studies recommends that teachers use both formative and summative assessment, as they can complement each other to build a comprehensive profile of student achievement. Throughout this unit, it is essential that there is formative assessment to make adjustments to each of the following lessons based on what is seen that the child knows and can do. Formative assessment in this unit of work could be the collection of student work and presentation of student work, as this will allow teachers to assess students' abilities in using watercolour paints and provide them the opportunity to explain their understanding of the techniques and colours they used and what other artists used to represent the subject matter. According to Killen, at the end of the unit of work, the teacher must conduct a summative assessment that will enable students to demonstrate the standard to which they have achieved the outcomes. The summative assessment of the collection of students' artwork for a one-on-one conference with the teacher is the key assessment strategy in this unit, as the teacher can properly check for the child's understandings and hear and see the techniques they used. For example, they may see that a child is working at a high standard in Stage 2 through this conferencing, as they can explain their choice of bright colours to create a happy feeling for people when viewing their artwork. The teacher then works backwards again by designing the learning activities that have a clear purpose. The purpose in this unit is to give opportunities for students to develop and show their skills and understandings in relation to using watercolour paint to represent nature, to show beauty, and setting the mood using colour. This is an example of 5 lesson activities that could be used in this unit of work. The first activity might involve students exploring how they can create different colours by adding different amounts of water to the paint. They might be asked to suggest what each shade of the colour could be used for in an artwork. The following lesson could include the teacher giving the students a large piece of paper divided into 4, and the children could paint using their watercolours to represent 4 different songs they listened to. The teacher can suggest to the students to also think about the colours they're using to represent the song. Some students are asked to share these ideas with the class and explain their choices in this lesson. The third learning experience could be a modelled session where the teacher demonstrates how to create different effects using watercolours, so that the children can practice how they can represent details of subject matter using a variety of techniques. The fourth learning experience would give students the opportunity to choose something from the bush area outside the school, such as a small branch with leaves or a flower, and paint that subject using watercolour paints. The teacher would collect these for the assessment of the techniques used. The fifth and final lesson would have the purpose of allowing students to paint a place that they like to be in nature, such as the place their family goes for beach holidays, or a place under a big tree at their house. The students would be asked to ensure that they use colour to show how that place makes them feel, and to show different details in that environment. This artwork would be collected for a one-on-one conference with the teacher to discuss the techniques used. Teachers finally would decide the way in which they would teach this unit of work in terms of the teaching strategies. It is important for teachers to use a variety of teaching strategies to suit the learning needs of all students. The unit of work would need to include direct instruction, as the students need to be shown how to use watercolours in a variety of ways to create different effects. This meets the outcome based on making art in a particular way. Experimentation and exploration are effective strategies that would allow children to make discoveries on their own and express themselves throughout this unit. The presentation teaching strategy allows children to develop an understanding of the reasons behind different aspects of an artwork by explaining the reasons behind their own art. Practice is essential overall to build on the skills of using watercolour paints. The backward mapping technique is clear here, as these learning experiences give opportunities for students to be prepared for the summative assessment and to meet the outcomes of this unit by discovering and building on new techniques and gaining new understandings to more effectively create art in this particular form. Thank you for listening to this presentation, and I hope you now can understand the technique of backward mapping, the benefits of this technique for quality teaching and learning, and how it might be used in a creative arts context.